Welcome, Walnut. I'm Lara, but you can call me Laz, your host for Walnut Wednesday. This is your reminder to be brave, be yourself, and know that you can make the world a better place just by what you decide today. Here, I'm going to share my weekly walnuttings with you on a Wednesday. Hello, Walnut. It is me, Laz, here for another episode of Walnut Wednesday, and I have one of my beautiful divine friends here to visit and speak with us today. Welcome, Sam.
Hello, thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for agreeing to be here and letting me pick your brain about all the things. So, Walnut, Sam and I went to university together, studying film. Oh, did you do film also?
I did do film, majored predominantly in theatre,
Yeah. So
which
we
is what we did.
Yeah, we were theatre buddies together. So yeah, what a whirlwind. It feels like a whole lifetime ago, but obviously been
It
in the
does.
scene, following each other's little online lives as we go. And yeah, now I've got the opportunity to chat with Sam, with you here listening, Walnut. So Sam, I will get you to introduce yourself, pretty please, to the Walnuts listening, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, thank you. No, my name's Sam. As Lara said, we went through the wonderful world of theatre together at uni. Absolutely was a whirlwind time. I feel like life has just been a whirlwind ever since. Got a degree in theatre, promptly went on to do nothing in theatre in my working life. I now work in mental health and education, which has been really awesome. I've kind of like accidentally fallen into that space, but absolutely love it. I have a just turned 3 year old and a just turned 3 month old. So it's been, again, whirlwind with a decent sprinkling of chaos and carnage. Getting used to that life and adapting and all that fun stuff. Not much sleep happening in the household at the moment, but we're winning. We're doing it.
You're doing the things and getting through, and yeah, having been initiated into the whirlwind that is motherhood myself, I just gotten myself used to these permanently attached little baggies that live under my eyes at all times and just accept that this is my face now.
Accessorize.
Yeah. So Walnut Sam actually reached out to me in my like grind through the last slog of my condition when I was pregnant, and I remember asking you all sorts of questions, Sam, about like my nappy size, like nappies for me, not for the child, and all sorts. So we've gone to into the deep dark nitty gritty of basically all dignity leaving the premise and going straight
As
in.
it does in motherhood, I think. Yep.
Yeah.
Pregnancy and
So
motherhood.
yeah, you've been such a support to me through my like time through this. And what I found actually since joining this group of women is there are so many that of us that just come, you feel this pull towards supporting a woman that you see going through it,
100%.
because when you're there you you just don't know what you don't know until you're there. And
No, nothing can prepare you for it until you're in it. And that's sometimes very confronting.
yes, yes. And I remember you saying to me, like, I was just really going through it at one point, and you're like, and I'm actually going through it again. I'm pregnant again, and I'm doing this. So I'm about to like do everything that you're doing again, and you're giving me your kind of experience of that. So I'd really love to talk to you today, Sam, about um your journey. And we can talk about, do you want to talk about pregnancy with your firstborn, with your 3 year old, and how that feels, and we'll just get the ball rolling of that
Yeah,
and then
totally.
carry on. I'd love to hear birth stories if you're keen to share them. So yeah, we should.
Yeah, no, 100%. So, yeah, like this is the thing people say, like, oh, I can't remember when you're asking for advice and you think, oh, it wasn't that long ago. It was only 3 years ago and it's such a blur now. But yeah, looking back, like the pregnancy with Emery, I'm just not a glowing pregnant gal. I don't love being pregnant. It's like I never spew in my pregnancies, but I just have 24/7 nausea. So it's just, there's a lot of feeling sorry for myself. There was a lot of sleeping in that first one. Um, yeah, just constantly feeling sick. I was averse to basically all food with Emery. I could only eat ice blocks and oranges, which by the time you're getting into that second trimester, you're very much over those two flavors.
Yeah.
Very ready for some real food. With Emery, it took me about 18 weeks to stop feeling sick. And then from that point onwards, it kind of came right, especially now having experienced my second pregnancy. I look back and think it was actually relatively fine from 20 weeks onwards. Like I had energy. I was able to kind of do things. I wasn't too uncomfortable, body wise and sleeping wise and all that kind of stuff. So it was pretty non-eventful from around that kind of 20-week mark with Emery. Of course, anxiety was through
Yeah.
the roof, especially coming out the other side of all that COVID stuff, and there were still like small lockdowns and stuff happening. And so we kind of self-imposed our own we lockdown. I think we stayed home for like 2 or 3 months with when I was pregnant with Emery. And we ended up being the first people out of my whole family to get COVID anyway.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah. As these things
Of
happen, I
course.
think like Nick literally popped into a mechanic to pick up a like a line trimmer that had been fixed, and we got it that way. Which was a bit scary being pregnant, but as all things, you build things up in your head. Not at all to say that it's not a big deal to have COVID when you're pregnant, because it is very scary to be in that space. But um, having COVID itself was awful. Bub was fine.
Yeah.
So came out the other side of that all good. Didn't have a great midwife, and I wish I'd listened to my instincts at the time.
Yeah.
Um, Very much felt like a number, just kind of repeating the same stuff every appointment. I could tell she just wasn't really retaining or remembering anything that we kind of talked about. And as a result, you kind of feel like you don't mean much to them in the grand scheme of things. And I know for them, they're seeing so many women, like they're supporting so many women, but you feel like the benefit of having an LMC is that you build that relationship. And I never really felt like we had that, because
Um,
it didn't feel I didn't feel like I really mattered. And that, the things that I shared with her really mattered. And at the time, we did all of the things. We did the hypnobirthing, the spinning babies, all that kind of stuff. And one of the lessons we took away from those sessions was that, look, at the end of the day, your midwife is someone who is like the lifeguard at this on the side of the pool, who they're the one that has the medical knowledge for if something goes wrong, but your support person is the person who's in the pool with you. I was like, great. Well, I trust my husband. I've got his support. I know that he'll get me through, and the midwife's kind of there on the sidelines for, if anything is kind of needed. Um, so I went into labour. I got up to go to the bathroom. Everything was absolutely normal. Got back into bed, and getting back into bed, I was like, oh, that's sore. That feels like a really bad, like, period cramp. It's like, okay. Lay there, it like wasn't really going away. Like, oh, could this be it? Like I'm 38 weeks. Like I've still got 2 weeks to go. But I've only been on mat leave for 2 days.
I
Like,
know.
what is
Why is
going
it?
on?
Why is it that you just, I don't know why we push ourselves. I feel like that's one of my like tips is like that
So
you
earlier than you
push, yeah,
think.
you push yourself to go, oh, that's like the brink of when I should go on leave. Backtrack it for like three
Yeah,
weeks.
yeah,
Like,
100%. Definitely do it, because yeah, it just I definitely felt I hadn't had the time for my headspace to adjust out of like this chapter of life,
yeah.
work, being an individual, into like, wow, okay, life's going to change pretty dramatically from this point onwards. So yeah, just like started having contractions. I had to laugh when you talked about like kind of gaslighting yourself into Um, like thinking there were heaps of time between your contractions and stuff when in reality you'd progressed quite far because I was exactly the same. Like I'd been in labor for 24 hours and was like, am I in labor?
Yeah. People say that
Or am
too.
I,
They're
have I
like,
just been in pain?
you'll know, and it's like a big, but you don't. I don't. You get really like gassed up to be like, oh, but it's meant to
Yeah,
like be excruciating. I mean,
yeah,
don't get me wrong. It's not that it wasn't sore, but it was like, yeah, I really pushed myself to the to wait before I woke up Geordie, and I had been really laboring on my own, but that was where I was like, oh, now it's getting to this point where.
yeah.
I arrived at the birthing unit 10 centimeters, so I had really just,
Yeah.
it had worked. I had worked, and I just like kept anticipating that it's going to get worse and worse and worse. You know what
It's
I
gonna
mean?
get worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It's and again, it's you don't. How can you know it until you experience it as well? Like there's nothing to compare it to. Like when people say a really, really bad period in your mind, you're like, oh yeah, I feel like I can tell maybe what that would feel like. I could not tell what that felt like until I lived it. Um, but yeah, like it was a very long labor. I just am a long laborer. My waters don't break. So with Emery in total, it was 50 hours, and that was without any sleep.
Whoa.
And it was pretty gnarly. And um, come the end of it, I ended up having to get an epidural right at the end, purely just to actually get some rest because like I couldn't even stand. I couldn't like support my own weight by the end of it. My midwife incorrectly measured me at 10 centimeters when in reality I was 8. So she had got me pushing for like 2 hours when I wasn't ready. And so, of course, then the whole cascade of interventions thing occurs, which look, everyone has their preferences and everybody, has their stories and things like that. I'm of the opinion that, if a ventouse is needed or a forceps is needed or if a C-section is needed, like you just gotta do what you gotta do. There's baby comes out whichever way that they need to, and that's a birth. You've birthed your child,
Yeah.
whichever way that occurs, and that Barbara's healthy and happy, but that you're healthy and happy as well. And so I never had any expectations or um, specifications about like or fears about any of that sort of thing. So like when it was discussed that we would look at ventouse, I was like, yeah, let's go for it. It was a failed ventouse, so we then moved to forceps. And this is meanwhile having had an epidural, so I couldn't actually feel any of the pushing or any of the um, contractions happening. They just had to tell me when a contraction was happening, and I just had to like bear down. Um, got Emma out with forceps on like the last try. Um, everything was fine. Like his APGAR scores were all good. Um, I very much like at this point, 50 hours without sleep, I very much felt like a deer in headlights
Yeah.
at this point. And yeah, again, the whole birth experience hadn't been great. Like we felt like we couldn't ask questions. I'm very much a people pleaser, so anytime we would want to ask the midwife a question, like when she was trying to push me to manually break my waters, and we were like, "Oh, look, can we just have some time to talk about it?" Um, she'd look very affronted and like quite annoyed at us, and I really struggle in such. Well, I should say struggled. Thankfully working on it and getting better, but I did really struggle with situations like that, like trying to keep the peace, and especially with a husband who's wouldn't have been shy to advocate for me a lot more strongly than he did. And trying to like having contractions, trying to mollify him, trying to keep the midwife happy. And so yeah, just all of it combined with the lack of sleep and poor wee Bubba who in hindsight had a whole lot of stuff going on with our feeding and everything. I can see why things kind of spiraled a little bit in the way that they did.
Yeah.
So we didn't actually end up getting to bed until so he was born at 2 in the morning. We weren't able to get into a room until 6. So by then we're kind of getting on for like 60 hours a week. And so at this point I was very like wired and didn't really sleep very much in the hospital. It was at this point that looking back, I would say the bad anxiety really started kicking in. Like I couldn't sleep because I was so terrified. Like, is he breathing? Is he
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, looking back, I think like that's definitely when things started kicking off. The hospital
Sorry.
midwives were just amazing.
Were you at hospital to
Yes,
oh yeah.
but we have a maternity ward, like a dedicated maternity ward at Marston Hospital, and honestly, we are very, very lucky where we are. Like they have like a birthing pool and
Yeah.
individual rooms and things like that. So, and just the hospital midwives are Masterton maternity ward. Shout out, like
Yay.
such a credit to the community. They are such phenomenal women. And having gone from my experience with my LMC to suddenly these women who I had amazing rapport with
Yeah.
within 1 to 2 days, and just so warm and like caring and took the time to explain things and very into informed consent,
Yeah.
etc. Um, so they were really, really incredible. So, like the birth story side of things, it was very long. And I do, you have the noise of people telling you, like, oh, they shouldn't have let you go on for that long. And like, it must have been such a traumatizing experience. But honestly, looking back, like the birth itself, or a long birth is not fun, a long labor is not fun. But it was for me, that was the doable part. For me, it was what came afterwards that was the descent.
Well, I really feel this, and I think this is what's not talked about as much because I think when you go through your condition, you spend majority of that time prepping for labor and that small little blip of hospital, maternity unit, wherever that is, and preparing yourself for your body to like do its thing. Um,
Mm,
you don't get told about the after, and then you get sent home with this
no.
thing with no instruction manual. You're literally, well, in my experience, and it sounds like yours as well, you've literally gone into shock. You're like
Yes. Yes.
deer in
Yeah.
headlights is a very light way of saying like, what the fuck has just happened to me, and what am I doing, and am I in my body? I don't know. And you then all of a sudden you're there with this thing with no manual or whatever. Yes, you have a midwife that visits you every day and all that sort of stuff. But like you say, if you've got somebody who you haven't built that nurturing
Trust
relationship
with.
with, you don't they're not the people that you want to be calling at 3 a.m. if you're worried about something, and that's
Exactly.
hard as well. Um so yeah, the descent, I really feel that word. I feel that word with all my heart. Because yeah, similarly I yeah, I really resonate with that. So let's go from there because yeah, people I remember after I gave birth, this wonderful woman, I think she was a student nurse or something. She was like, "Oh, people don't tell you about day three when your milk comes in and the hormones and
Yeah.
all of that." And she was like, "So definitely try and stay 2 nights if you can, so that you've got that support." And my like whatever day two or three, when my milk was apparently meant to be coming in, that didn't happen until my first night at home. So had this blissful, like, felt like a little holiday experience at the birthing unit, just like these beautiful, like you say, angels from absolute heaven who I love and adore, and I'll remember them and love them till the day I die. Um, and then I got home and yeah, the night sweats, the milk
Yes.
coming, the what is it, cluster feeding. Yeah, my descent was absolutely real. So let's go into yours.
It is a time. It is an absolute time, right? Like those night sweats. Why does no one tell you? I thought I had mastitis. I was like, surely I have fever. I'm stoked through. What is going
Like
on? No,
really,
just very normal, apparently.
yeah.
So much stuff that no one tells you. Yeah. But no, so yes, I was like deep in my feels when I got home. couldn't stop crying. We don't know if it was a complication with the epidural or if it was, I was laboring so intensely in my back. Like that was predominantly where most of my excruciating pain was in my back. But essentially, I everything kind of just went offline for me in my pelvis. So I had no so I was still continent, but I had no urgency to go to the toilet. I had no feeling, like everything was completely numb down there. So I had to like sit on a donut for like 2 months. I had to have a timer on my phone for 2 months. For every 2 hours, I had to go to the toilet because otherwise my bladder would just fill up and I wouldn't know. I would have no idea that I'd need to go to the toilet. And so that was very intense because it's like, oh my God, is this ever going to get better? Um, I also had like a stage one cystocele, which is like a bladder prolapse where your bladder like basically kind of flops down and falls forward into your bits. And so like navigating that was like really complicated. Um, and yeah, so like feeling all these feels, couldn't stop crying, had no idea if I would ever have any sensational feeling or like if things had just permanently gone wrong for me downstairs. And I had a midwife who, oh, and then like,
Yeah.
still with all of this, um, Corby Emery, bless him, he was such a voracious feeder. He would latch and suck so strongly that I was just I can't even explain to you the world of pain that I was in with breastfeeding. I was like bleeding.
Yeah, we discovered pretty quickly that feeding was just like not going well with Emery. And of course, again, you don't know what you don't know. You hear all this different rhetoric, like if they're latched properly, it definitely doesn't hurt, but you might experience latch pain for a while. But it might be painful for 6 weeks, but it might be painful for 12 weeks, and that's when things settle. So it's a very confusing time as to what actually I should be feeling versus shouldn't. But funnily enough, the answer was what I was feeling, I shouldn't have been feeling.
No, I feel like that amount
It
of
was quite
discomfort is
bad.
not normal. Yeah.
Exactly. I'm very good at like gaslighting myself into being like, oh, do I just need to push through having my nip half off? Like, yeah, no, it was not good. And again, like a lot of my supports really fell over at this time where, you're quite emotionally and mentally vulnerable, and that's when you need your supports to kind of be at their strongest. And I was like bleeding every feed. I tried using nipple shields, and um, I don't know if it picked up in what I said before, but I have something called elastic nipples. So it would, and Emery had such a strong suck, it would pull my nipple right to the end of the shield to the point where it would be pulled through the holes at the end and bleed and
Oh,
break off. And
yeah.
so it was pretty horrific, pretty traumatizing. And yeah, like I hadn't seen my LMC. Um, I'd been discharged by this point, still hadn't seen her for like that first in-home visit. I booked in to see the lactation consultant, and she had essentially cancelled her first home visit to see me. Was like, oh, I'll be in hospital at that same time when you go to see the lactation consultant, so I can see you then. I was like, great. And I was determined to not put on my coping mask like I always do, to not be like, oh, like I'm doing all right. Like I was really determined to be like, hey, I'm not actually okay. I'm not doing well. Um, I need some help. And so we got to the hospital, and I bumped into the midwife in the corridor. You know, how are you going? How are you going? She didn't even look at Emery. She didn't ask how he was going or anything. Look, she might have been in a rush on her way to get somewhere. It is what it is. But the important part is that she asked me how I was doing. I said, "Oh, look, I'm actually really struggling." And she was like, "Oh, but you're doing so well. You're doing amazing." I was like,
So she asked
Again,
you how you're doing with no intent of listening to the
no,
answer,
no,
basically.
yeah,
That is just
yeah.
she is not in the right job.
No, exactly.
I'm
And
so
that was her
sorry.
way. Like she'd kind of dismiss you by complimenting you, and it never felt very satisfying. But I was like, whatever. I'm seeing her after this lactation consultant appointment. I I'm not going to take that. I'm going to talk to her and say, look, I'm not doing well. What do we do from here?
Yeah.
Had the lactation consultant appointment. Again, um, we're very lucky to have these resources, particularly free resources. Um, she assessed for a tongue tie and things like that. Didn't feel he had a tongue tie. The appointment didn't really help. Went to leave, said, where's my midwife based? I've got to catch up with her afterwards. And it was discovered that the midwife had gone home. And I just, that was a breaking point for me. I
Yeah.
just felt really let down, really not cared about. I think my words at the time, probably a bit dramatic, but I did. I felt quite abandoned by the people who were supposed to be my support network at a time that I actually really wasn't doing well at all. And so we made the call then to actually break up with our midwife. And we're lucky enough to have another of the community LMC step in, and she was just amazing, like night and day difference. Really up to date research and knowledge, was very into informed consent, very, very into just talking things through and like giving you all of the information and not just assuming that kind of like a cookie cutter response would work. That it just doesn't work for my anxious wee brain. I like to know the things, and I like to
Yeah.
be able to ask questions and talk things through. And so she worked really, really well for me. And so, the silver lining is that happened. But at the time was it was just a lot. Um, to be going through all of that change and feeling like, yeah, a lot of those supports had fallen over. I had a lot of like family issues and stuff going on as well. And then yeah, like the cherry on top was just the horrific breastfeeding, feeling really strong armed into having to move to pumping full time, like by I think kind of week two. I had Emery on breast like pumped bottles pretty much full time. I was trying to breastfeed him once or twice a day just to like keep practicing those skills and things like that. But it was just like, yeah, my mood was awful because you're constantly in pain.
Oh, can we just quickly talk about Sam? Like, because same here with, and I did not have anywhere near as excruciating as what your experience sounds like. But I got to about 2 to 3 week mark where I decided to exclusively pump. Um,
Yeah,
and one thing that I also didn't see talked about a lot um anywhere, but mind you, I didn't go hunting for it either. But that really, really difficult feeling of dread to, and guilt because you need to feed your baby, but you don't want that you don't want
yeah,
that baby
yeah,
anywhere near your body because of how
yeah,
much it hurts. And
yeah.
that really, really hard feeling that you have to hold of those two really strong emotions at the same time.
Hmm.
I don't even, yeah, like I didn't see that really widely spoke about, and that was my reason for going to pumping, as I was like, I'm just going to have a break. And
Mm-hmm.
that break from like actually physically breastfeeding never never stopped being a break, and I just pumped, but that came with all its own stuff, which I'm so sure we'll cover off. But yeah, what was that similar for
A
you, your
100%.
feeling?
Yeah, 100%. Like looking back, I really do think I was quite numb and had experienced a bit of a delayed bonding with Emery because your predominant emotion, for me anyway, I either felt kind of numb or terrified of my child,
Yeah.
like the dread of feeding and even leaving the house, just this
Yeah.
horrible terror and fear of like, oh my God, what if I've done this at a time where you get hungry and need to feed, and that means I potentially have to breastfeed you. And I'm so scared of that. I'm so scared of being in pain.
Yeah.
It was awful. It was a really horrible feeling.
Yeah. And that doesn't make you like walnuts listening who are like maybe in the condition or whatever. It doesn't that doesn't mean anything about you as a mother or anything like that. It is just this weird, really difficult thing that you have to kind of pass through. I think especially if
100%.
you have trouble with like with the breastfeeding stuff, that's where that kind of really comes up because it's this balance of like needing to what's that? Is it sustain? But anyway,
Mm,
keep your baby
mm,
alive with your milk.
mm, mm.
And the excruciating pain, and then the anxiety comes from the anticipation of the excruciating pain
Yes,
while
yes,
feeling like I felt like a failure because I
yeah,
didn't want to feed my baby and not from any malice, not because I didn't love my baby or anything, but because it hurt.
yeah,
And
yeah.
that's just this mind fuck that I still can't really get over to this day, to be
Oh,
honest.
massively. It's that pain and knowing that you actively have to put yourself through pain to do something as important as keeping your child alive. Like
Yeah.
you've got no choice
Yeah.
in putting yourself through this time and time and time again because they feed a lot.
A lot.
Um,
A
a
lot.
lot, a lot. And it's quite crushing too. I think like probably another thing that's not really talked about is you hear this rhetoric of like how breastfeeding is this natural thing and it's like the be all end all for your bond with your baby and it's the best thing for them as far as nutrients and their health and um it's just yeah like we're bombarded with all of this messaging that makes us feel so awful and scared and guilty and shameful to explore other options
Yeah.
because even breast milk in a bottle still bizarrely feels like you've failed almost.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
And it's not. It's absolutely not.
it's so not. I remember my midwife saying to me, like, do you enjoy breastfeeding? And I said, well, fuck no. Like, like I don't feel any more bonded to my baby when I give him a bottle because yeah, I had to do a little bit of both and everything before I went on my break. But yeah, I said I don't feel any closer or not closer between my boob or a bottle. In fact,
Mm,
like
mm,
my boob, it hurts. So there's no
yeah,
extra additional bondage. It's just no.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
um,
yeah.
yeah, I didn't have that so-called bonding, loving experience when I had my baby on me versus when I was feeding him still on me, but with a bottle.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
yeah,
yeah. In fact, it's probably the opposite to all of those lovely bonding oxytocin feelings, being, soaked in cortisol and stress and fear and yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. And it's a lot even if it is going well, I think.
yeah.
Gosh, women are just so strong. Women are
Oh,
so resilient.
yeah. And I saw a thing the other day actually that was just like, um, you know, if you can, breastfeed because it's free, but actually it's not free. It's your
Yeah.
time, it's your resilience, it's like all the extra food you got to eat. The amount of milk is so relative to, well, you learn this when you do pumping as well, but like it's relative to your hydration, your stress,
Mm,
your
mm,
boobs are so magical and so like attuned to you, but if you're not treating yourself right, your
mm,
boob is affected essentially.
mhm.
So like, yeah, it's not free. It's
No,
so
it's not.
different. Yeah.
It's not. Yeah, I think I know the thing that you're talking about, and that it really struck a chord because it's so true. Yeah, again, I think uh, this like breastfeeding is a magical thing, don't get me wrong. But there are multiple ways to feed your child, all of which are nourishing them and growing them in the best way for them and for you. I
Yeah.
think that is really important as well. There's yeah, a baby nourished off of breast milk, um, I don't think that trumps having a mum who is healthy and happy because that's more important to that child in the long run, I think. Yeah.
I really definitely agree so much with that. And I think also um it gives your partner a chance to have that like bond experience. I think bottle feeding just isolates mum a little less.
Yeah, yeah, it
You know, like
does. More
we
flexibility.
yeah, and we're in a day and age where um we mums are very different now to mums back then when breastfeeding was the be all end all.
Mm,
And we have things now available to like assist with the mental health of the mother now
yeah.
that like like formula and all of that stuff like it's there for a reason and you kind of get really s scared into thinking that that is like the thing that you should never have, but
Mm,
after having
mm.
gone through it myself I was so happy that I had a spare tin of formula there because
Ah, the relief,
the
the absolute
minute
relief to have it in the house.
yeah, and I always say that to like my friends that I haven't been with, like, just get a sachet, couple
Yeah,
sachets, just
yeah.
get it because I remember that moment so strongly where I was just crying and then I was just crying. I cried a lot as you alluded to that you did as well. But yeah, I was crying. I didn't feel like feeding. I was afraid it hurt. Blah blah blah. And Geordie just went, oh fuck this, and he made a bottle of formula
Mm,
and just put it in his mouth and gave it to him. And like Louis was amazing. He just took to a bottle and all the stuff. So that was really we were really lucky with that. But I just remember being like, oh my God, a decision has been made for me
yeah,
that I didn't have to make.
yeah.
You feel when you're in it, especially you feel really trapped in this feeling that you have to decide something.
Yes,
And
yes.
that whatever you decide is just going to have such a long impact. Like I remember just being like, "What's wrong with if I do formula?" And my midwife she was just telling me the options, but she was like, "Well, do you want to breastfeed again? Because that will impact that. And if like if you choose to
Yeah.
drop a pump session, that she was just telling me all that stuff, but it felt like
Such a weight.
pressure that if I
Yeah.
if I decided something that would ruin something else all the time.
Yes,
So
yes.
having somebody else just go chuck a
Yeah.
bottle in the baby's mouth just took away so many of the spider web spiral factors in my
Oh, what you're saying is just so bang on. Like just the what do they call it? Like decision fatigue and just like that terror of making the wrong choice because 3 steps down the road, this X thing would happen and that would happen because I made the wrong decision back here. And it's just so exhausting and overwhelming. And I do think that was a real again, like should have been a real indicator to me at the time. Because, like, surprise, surprise, I was dealing with quite gnarly postpartum depression with all of this stuff and postpartum anxiety. And that was a really big kind of clue in that I just felt so scared to make any decision. I felt like I didn't trust myself to make
yeah
any decisions. I felt like I had to defer to Nick all of the time because um, yeah, I didn't trust my own judgment. And also, as bad as it sounds, like not only to have someone else making the decisions, but if something went wrong, to not have that weight
yeah
on
still have that
my
now.
shoulders.
Yeah
Yeah, yeah,
oh man yeah those feelings they kind of just like never leave you but yeah when you're in it and it's the first time as well Sam like I just can't
yeah,
believe like what you've had to go through um with the midwife and stuff like that like that's where you want someone to be able to kind of guide you in the right way and if you're kind of just stuck and you don't when you have the anxiety you don't really know that you're like consciously having anxiety. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
All you're doing
yeah.
is spreading. It's not like I am having anxiety, so you don't have rational like stuff going on. Um, so what happened? How did you kind of like push, not push through? How did you get through that little bout of the feeding and stuff like that? Your midwife changed, which was amazingly for the better. You were well informed, and then did you just kind of truck on from there? And did you get
Yeah.
diagnosed or?
So I didn't officially get diagnosed. It helps to have a husband who is a clinical psychologist. So, you know, he essentially was like, this is textbook stuff. And of course he's in it too. So he knew kind of what was going on, but meanwhile he's trying to keep a household afloat as well, trying to support me. And so like once you kind of come out of that fog, because it really is a fog for a good like 4 to 6 months, it was then when we're like, oh, this is what we've kind of been dealing with. But he was so supportive, and it was him kind of like gently suggesting that I should maybe look into things like counseling and and it's really hard to prioritize stuff like that when you're in the thick of motherhood because there's a real anxiety about leaving the house and like how will things go when I'm not there and all that sort of stuff. And especially when you're tied to a pump as well, like tied to feeding or tied to a pump. At the time, I had like a plug-in wall pump, so like had very limited flexibility. You'll know too that like anytime you're stressed or dealing with like emotional stuff, like there's those horrible periods where you'll pump hardly anything and then you're stressing about the next feed and having enough for the next feed. So it was kind of like getting through that patch too until milk regulated and kind of sorted itself out and we found a rhythm there. Um, we got a second opinion on the tongue tie. Surprise, surprise. He had a textbook tongue tie, which again, like gutted to have been let down so badly in those first weeks. And by this point, he was 5 months and was just too kind of in the habit of feeding in the way that he fed. So once we had the tongue tie released, he would like gag and scream and be really upset on the boob. And so at that point, I was like, okay, it's time. Like, we've tried literally everything. It's time to kind of put this to rest. We'll just go full time pumping and like supplement with formula where we kind of need to. And it was then, probably around that 5 to 7 month mark, that I was like, okay, I'm waiting for this to lift and it's not going away. And I've waited too long, I think. I've just been trying to push through for too long. Like, I've got to take action. I've got to do something about this. It's clearly not going to go away on its own. And it was around that time that I engaged with a counselor, which was amazing. Um, 10 out of 10 recommend if you're dealing with postpartum depression. See, see a specialist, see someone, in this field because it really does help. And the irony of working in mental health is like, I know this. I know this, you know, why push through? Why be a hero? Like, talk to someone, like go to your GP, get on medication if that's the right fit for you. Talk to someone if that's do some talking therapy if that's the right fit for you. Just like prioritize yourself. Do something to look after yourself. Don't just push on through in the hope that it's going to go away because chances are it's probably not going to go away in the way that you hope. It might get pushed down, it might get pushed to the back of the cupboard, but it's probably not going to sort itself out without some form of address and unpacking. And I'm really, really obviously thankful that I did. And looking back, I wish I had engaged with someone much, much sooner because I think the tail of that went on for a lot longer than it probably needed to if I'd gotten help sooner. Like I would say I probably didn't feel a handy myself and like out of that fog of kind of mental health challenges until Emery was about 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it was definitely a journey. And there was lots of and journey is the right word for it. It's not this linear A to B thing where I'm unwell, everything's all better, and it will be forever. forever. It's a journey. Like you're going to have steps backwards. And there were times where, I got much better at recognizing when that was happening and okay, what do I need? I know I'm not feeling great. What do I need to do to bring me out of, those periods? And if that's not working, do I need to re-engage with my counselor? Do I need to um, you know, talk to Nick? Do I need to just getting better at recognizing the signs and just like actually listening rather than just trying to push on and push it down.
I feel like there is also a bit of a, sorry, thank you so much for sharing and like so important to like have these chats. So thank you for like having the courage to come and talk about this on Walnut Wednesday with us. Um, but I do feel like also sometimes there is this feeling that or of fear that the I don't know, like the baby's going to get taken away from you or something like that.
Yeah,
Sometimes I've
yeah.
been sat at Plunket appointments, and I love all my like health people. They're so awesome. But when they say no, and are you doing okay? I feel afraid to say. I sometimes have felt like, yeah, scared to say, no, I'm not. Because, like, do you know what I
Mm,
mean? But they're
mm.
asking because they just, like, need to see if I need support or something. And, like,
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
times where I've said what I've been worried about, I've gotten, like, another support person to come and, like, help with me. Like, at the moment, um, I've got another lady coming to come to my house and help me, like, do solids because I'm just petrified of, like, feeding
Oh,
her and
amazing.
all the stuff. But, like, yeah, there is this like this thing. I don't know how it got so ingrained into society, but it is that like not that fear of asking for help because of a repercussion that you make up in your head.
Mm,
And I think especially with postpartum stuff, just because your brain is I just feel like that's its own little place in isolation because your brain is I can't even describe it. A fog is a good way of it, but you just don't know until you're in it. And I remember being like I for a very long time just not feeling like a person, just not feeling
yeah.
like in my body and not in my yeah, not in my right mind to be able to make choices and decisions and everything. And I just like disconnected really, really far away from myself. So like,
Mm.
yeah, did you have do you resonate with that, Sam, of this like fear to say that you're not doing okay? Like,
Totally. And because I think too, like, as women, we have messaging from day dot, like literally from the times that we're playing with dolls and prams. Like, as a woman, instinctively, you're built to be a mother. And so if you're finding that hard,
you're wrong.
there's something wrong. There's something. And so um, there's a real instinct to hide that, I think, to not let the world see that you're not coping, because if they see, then it confirms you weren't cut out for this, or you're not doing a good enough job, or and it's just I do think being a mum is like rife with contradictions as well. Like, you must breastfeed your child, but don't you dare do that in public. And you know, it is. It's rife with contradictions. There's so much expectation and pressure, and I don't even know where it comes from, because you talk to other people, and I don't think the everyday person has all these expectations and laundry list of like what a mother should be doing and should look like. But there is just this infiltration of just social consciousness of these like unspoken
Yeah.
rules of what a mother is and should be doing to parent their child.
Yeah, I like that wording of the social consciousness thing because literally since my condition, since like having my vampire out in the world, all the things, and any time I have talked about things that I have found hard, 100% of any time, my reactions are, oh my God, same. Oh my God, I remember that.
Mm,
Where the things that I thought in my head of feeling like I shouldn't say that, they come from
Yeah.
somewhere, like you say, this social consciousness thing. Like
Mm,
that's what it is. But every single woman gone through this part has gone, oh yeah.
mm,
There's not been
mm,
one person going, oh, you'll be right, or anything. Like that comes like a little bit la later and stuff, but everyone is like, yep.
mm.
Um,
Yeah. And it's almost like this like unspoken secret club that happens because you come out the other side and you're like, why does no one talk about this? But at the same time, I remember being really careful about the way that I worded things when I spoke to you because I wanted to be honest, but I also didn't want to terrify you.
yeah,
And also like knowing that you may have had a really different experience to me and to not project my experience onto you
yeah,
before you've even had your experience, And so it's just this weird dance of
yeah,
trying to be honest and like in solidarity, but also not to spook anybody. And then yeah, you come out that other side of birth and that fourth trimester and the newborn trenches and just kids in general. I'm not gonna lie. Because it continues, but it gets easier and you adapt. And but yeah, it's again like our favorite saying, it's just one of those things that you can't know it until you're in it, and then when you're in it, that relatability and that solidarity and support from other people who are in it is just so priceless.
yeah, yeah. It
Yeah.
honestly, the women in my life have saved my life, essentially. Like, and just by the, yeah, I get it. Or
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
bought this size of nappies or like all of those small things and they are a lot of the time would seem really small, but that accumulation has really saved my life and made me feel completely not alone and supported. And again, just
Mm,
that thing you don't know what you don't know until you know it and then you're there. And
mm, mm,
this swarm of like love from all the village, all the women, that like from we knew each other at university and now we've been able to
mm.
come together. Like it just brings this bond that you won't ever have unless you're someone who has done this before. And
Oh,
it's so
100%.
beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It is really beautiful. And I think it's just that, yeah, it's an instinct to want to hold other women up going through that experience, because even if it's, and I say this with air quotes because it doesn't matter if things are textbook or perfect, everyone experiences things in a different way. And no matter what, it's still an adjustment and it's still hard. They're not lying when they say it's the hardest thing you're ever going to do in your life. And you don't know what that means until you're experiencing that what that hard means. And um you you do. You just want to give them a hug. You want to give
Yeah.
new mums and new parents a hug because it's a life-changing experience in the most amazing of ways, but also in the most breaking of ways as
Yeah.
well. And you're very much rebuilt from those ashes. But when you're in those ashes, whoa, it's a time.
It really, really is. And so, Sam, let's go on to, so you've just done this again.
I've done this again.
So, like, I mean, with where both of your, obviously, every birth, every pregnancy, all the things are all very different and they have their own story to tell. Um, Going through what you had to do mentally through that first time, I mean, obviously, were you
Mm.
how did that go when you were in the condition as well? Like, were you really freaked out that this was going to happen again? Yeah,
Yeah, I was very up and down. Like I felt very so we like fully expected, you know, that a lot of these things would probably come up again. And realistically, that there were going to be times where I felt in similar ways that I felt the first time around. And so I very much kind of went into it as you do when you're pregnant versus actually in the throes of it. Like, oh, I know what I need now. I know the signs. I'm not gonna push myself hard at all with breastfeeding. Like, if it works, great. If it doesn't, great. Like, I've got options and I know what works. I've done it before. So like I very much felt that through a lot of the way of the pregnancy, that this pregnancy this time around at 33, just those 3 years difference. Oh my God. Did not enjoy being pregnant second time around yet again. And this time was pretty gnarly. Like I was nauseous constantly up until about 22 weeks. I had bursitis in both hips that I had to get like physio for. Um, just exhausted, like running around after a toddler and being pregnant at the same time, and just feeling really stinking guilty that you couldn't be like 100% present with him because you're just so tired and, can't be doing all of the things. But at the same time, you can't rest. You don't have the luxury of lying down and having a nap and recharging because life goes on and you have another child to look after and you've just got to kind of tick along with it. So it's certainly not for the faint-hearted, but you do get through it. By the end, I was pretty over it. I was very ready to have Bubba, and as these things work, I went on maternity leave at 37 weeks, thinking Emery came at 38. I'll give myself a week, like rather than 2 days. Like I'll give myself a week. Anthony wasn't born until 40 and 6. So I was on mat leave for what's that, almost 4 weeks. I'm just waiting. And that was an interesting experience because I feel like the slowing down and the like switching off from the hecticness of work and everything almost did the opposite effect of what I had wanted the first time around. Of like I'd felt so ready and empowered and like borderline like excited to give birth and to say goodbye to the pregnancy, and it gave me too much thinking time, like reflecting on first time around, and I started maybe feeling a bit nervous. And I remember saying to Nick, like, oh, I'm just feeling a bit gutted because like I was in such a good space, and now I'm worried that this headspace is going to impact how the birth plays out. But um no, in the end, I really did make peace with a lot of probably that reflection was good for me, like thinking about the wins and the challenges of that first birth, and what was to come next. And there was talk of potentially inducing, which had been literally the only thing I hadn't been like flexy, easy breezy about. Oh, I'm happy for anything to happen as long as we get to the end where everybody's healthy and happy. And induction was the only thing that like had made me nervous because again it's something I had never experienced, and people like to tell their stories and whatnot. And but we did discuss induction, and I'd come around to the idea, it kind of like made peace with it, and was like, it is what it is. But no, I went into labor with Anthony at 2 in the morning. This time around was like, okay, uh, I'm pretty confident this time around that I'm in labor. I think it's pretty safe to say. Um, and so I just, sorry, I just had, yeah, I just kind of ticked along. Again, it was like relatively long by labor standards. It was 18 hours. And I remember getting to the hospital. My midwife, I got to the hospital at like 5. And my midwife and I had talked at length about how, like second births and labors tend to be a lot quicker. And she asked me like, okay, what time did you go into labor? This is at 5 p.m. I was like, oh, 2:30 this morning. And she looked at me and she's like, are you fucking joking? Like, come on. It's like, I know. But still, I'd always said if I went into labor and gave birth on the same day, that would feel like a walk in the park to me. Like anything up to 24 hours, perfect. I can so do that.
Yeah.
And it was like, it really did feel doable. Um, I had my waters manually broken this time because I just have a very strong amniotic sac, apparently. Um, and that really helped like tip things along because I felt the urge to push, but because my waters hadn't broken and because the membranes were quite thick and there was so much fluid, Anthony was just kind of like bobbing and kind of
Oh,
bouncing, but not properly like making contact enough to break the waters. So by the when we broke waters, I think it was like 5 to 8, and she was born at 10 past 8. So the bod was very keen on evacuation
yeah.
at that point. I had to laugh at your birth story episode about how like Jordy said you sounded like a Super Saiyan because that is 100% my experience. I remember saying sorry afterwards, being like, I was so loud, I'm so sorry. But yeah, I just like literally roared my way through those contractions because again, like laboring in my back, it's just like I have to make all of this noise to get through this.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I remember like when I surrendered to the sounds that you make. I did it I like it came out of me. It's like real guttural, is it?
Yeah.
But like made a sound and then I went, oh my gosh. And they were like, what's wrong? And I was like, no, I just think it's weird that I made a sound. Because like until then I'd just been breathing, right? And then like
Yeah.
and I kind of like cracked up and they were like, oh no, no, okay. And then and then I just ripped that band-aid off and then the sounds
Yeah.
just it just kept going. I
You gotta
didn't
do what you
Super
gotta
Saiyan though. I still haven't turned Super Saiyan, but I
do.
I did level up for sure.
Oh, 100%. I think like it's just a given. You level up during your birth experience no matter what because there's nothing else like it. And having had an epidural right at the end with Emery, um, I'd of course not experienced living on fire. So that was a very new experience and properly feeling her like come down the birth canal and things like that. And
Yes.
whew, women are amazing. How
I
the heck did we
know.
do what we do?
I know that little ring. Oh, oh, she's spicy.
She
Um,
bends. She bends.
but for me, it just felt like for ages, just trying to poo out a rock melon. That's the only way I can describe it for ages until the wonderful midwife said to me, "Now you're gonna feel what might feel like a bit of ring of fire." And I was like, "Oh, okay, but like I'm so in it, I'm like, whatever, you can tell me anything. But wow, wow. But that was
Yeah.
only about a 10-15 minute blip.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was just really when that happens, it's just around the corner, eh? And then you
Yes. Yeah. That you're so close at that point. Yeah. And like all things considered, like it went really well. I did tear because she had her wee hand up by her face, but it was like I just got a couple of stitches. The fact that I could feel my pelvis and tell if I needed to go to the bathroom was a huge win in my books because I probably should have mentioned that all came right within 2 months. You
oh
know,
yeah.
that all of that came back online, thankfully. And yeah, I remember saying to Nick, like after it all, you go through that experience being like, how did I do that? How was that possible? How is it humanly possible to go through that experience and still be in one piece? And yet a day or two later, you're up and walking around and like feeling relatively all right, depending on, how things played out for you in your experience. And I just remember thinking like that is wild. Again, like women are built for some pretty amazing things.
Yeah. So resilient, eh? Like just the body in general, eh? Like
100%.
actual,
Yeah.
what the actual hell?
Like, how has that happened? And I don't need to be in hospital for weeks.
Yeah. Honestly. And then and it's like, oh yeah, just going to the toilet after a vaginal birth is that's a whole thing in itself, eh? Like it just feels like the worst UTI you've ever well, for me anyway, the worst UTI I've ever had in my life. It like was really, really sore to go wheeze for quite some time.
Mm.
I don't actually remember when it actually stopped. I was drinking that Urol drink for God knows
Yes.
how long.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but you just do it and then you're like sustaining and feeding a baby and all like
Oh, just all of the things, keeping yourself intact. Like a lot of times you're having to juggle like pain meds and what time you have to take those. And like if in my case I was taking laxatives quite religiously because I did not want to experience that terrifying first poo in
I
any way that I didn't need to.
I just took some of my laxatives today actually because that doesn't go away. Just so super fun. Hemorrhoids are another joy that I feel like no one ever really like talks about. I remember like looking in the birthing unit. I had my would have been like my second shower or whatever. And I like turned around and I like looked at my butthole and I was like, oh my gosh, like when did that was not there before? Like, when did this beautiful little hole turn into that? And yeah, they don't go away for me, which is yeah. And I've heard lots of women also say that they're like,
Yeah.
oh,
Yeah.
let's go, yeah,
Yeah.
little butthole now, so that's cool.
Ongoing process. I always have to laugh now anytime I see like a Huggies ad with all the like soft focus and like beautiful lighting. Like, whose experience of motherhood is this? Because I don't know anyone who has been this serene. Like it's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah, it's
Like
gritty, grainy,
literally.
sweaty.
It is not a glamorous experience at all. In
No.
the best way and sometimes the most challenging of ways. But yeah, no, it's funny, isn't it? It's just what you have to navigate and go through. And I think especially that first time around too, like you have no basis for comparison. You've got no knowledge of like that's what I think is almost the best thing about round two is that you know that everything has an end point. You know that everything is a season. When it feels really crappy and hard, you know that you move through it and it will change eventually. You don't know when, but it will. And I think that can be said for everything. It can be said for um yeah, like your feeding experience, your the phases and the leaps and the growth spurts and the cluster feeding that your baby goes through, but also like your body physically as well. Like I was symptomatic for like I say, I had that cystocele, like a grade one prolapse, and I was symptomatic with that for months and just having no idea if and when it would come right. And in my case, thankfully, I was able to get it to a point where I no longer had symptoms. But you just don't know that when you're going through it the first time. And it can feel really scary and really isolating. And I can be quite a black and white person. So it's like, all or nothing. Like, this is it. This is my
Yeah.
life forever.
Yeah.
And turns out it's not. And so, yeah, when you're dealing with those scary, hard, challenging things and times, it's been quite reassuring this time around to be like, okay, let's just give it some time. Let's just give it some grace. Allow myself to feel a bit shit at the time, but no, it's probably going to change
Yeah.
at some point. It
That
may not be
was
straight away, but
yeah.
yeah.
That was my sort of next question about your experience with anything now is I suppose that's the approach that you're taking is like, okay,
Yeah, yeah,
and carry on. Like, okay, noted, and that's what I'm gonna do next sort of thing.
yeah. It's been like it is cheesy as it is to say, like it's honestly been a really healing experience, and that's not at all to say that it's been um easy or that things haven't been challenging or complicated. Like we're still a little bit up and down with our feeding and things like that. And that was a whole kettle of fish when we first started. Um, and the feeling quite triggered by pain and things like that.
Yeah.
But overall, it really, really has been um, a really healing experience. And I think that it's just being able to just be in the throes of being a parent and enjoying your bubba and not getting so wound up and wrapped up in the anxieties of like, yeah, just the what ifs, what could go wrong, what if I do this wrong, if I stuff this up, then that's going to mean these consequences forever, sort of thing. Like there's a lot of that thinking. Well, there was for me with Emery, just being terrified of doing anything wrong because you think the consequences, whatever they may be, will be irreversible.
Yeah.
And I think having come out the other side there with Emery, you actually realize babies are quite resilient little beings, and they, you know, that old adage is so true. Like at the end of the day, they need you and they need to be loved and feel safe, and that's the bottom line. And so, if you haven't perfectly sterilized their bottle or the teat dropped on the floor, and oh my god, was it sterilized properly after I dropped it? Like in the grand scheme of things, they're probably going to be okay, and you're probably going to come out the other side. And I think too it's not just knowing that things can change. Sometimes things may not change, but it's realizing your ability to adapt to things and to um, feel your way through things. I'm trusting my instincts a lot more this time around. Um, yeah, just having a lot more trust in myself and in just in the process and in the surrender as well. I think for me, I tried to hold on to a lot of things the first time around because again, you're so scared of doing anything wrong. I have to do it this way, otherwise X, Y, and Z will happen. Whereas this time, um, just yeah, surrendering and knowing that in the end, it's probably gonna hopefully all turn out okay.
Yeah. Have you found, I mean, it's still early days, only 3 months in, but I was talking to a colleague the other day, um and just about, it's hard, la la la, and she was like, yeah, and she's like, do you know what? You really stress out with your first one, and she was like, she's like, I lost my second one. She's like, I like walked off somewhere, and like you just the second time around, you're just kind of like, do you have that kind of vibe with it a little bit more? But I think that's more on the topic of how you've said you surrender to it, right? You're not
Yes.
you're not dangling by the thread of what if.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, 100%. I do, again, like everybody's experience is different, but I do think it sounds like a universal experience that the second time around you're just a lot more chill because you're not, it doesn't feel like everything in the world is out to kill your child.
Yeah.
Basically, like it's less of this 24/7 pressure of I have to do everything perfectly or something terrible is going to go wrong. Um, you know, there's yeah, it's just a much nicer experience. It has been for me anyway, just not having that overlay of intense anxiety and um just yeah, being able to relax and lean into it a bit
Yeah.
more. Yeah.
One burning question I have, Sam, and I know we're taking up heaps of time at the moment, so I promise we will wrap up. But will do you still check if she's breathing? Like because that's I know a universal mum thing that doesn't go away, and like I still do it a little bit, but it's much less now, 9 months along. But yeah, for the second round, do you
Hmm.
still have to like? Is there still that need of needing to do that?
I'm happy to say, I don't know if this means I'm well adjusted or just a terrible mother, but I'm happy to say I do a lot less of that this time around. Still happens. It still does happen, but not the same like nightly wake ups, like having to
Needing to.
lean in and like, oh can it, like you're breathing so quietly, like why? What's wrong? There's a lot less of that, thankfully. I'm getting much better sleep.
Wow, okay. That's good to know because yeah, oh my gosh, it's such a thing. I think I got to about 7 months where I didn't have to in the middle of the night just go in and lean hand
Yes,
on tummy to check that it's
yes.
going up and down. I still like poke my head through the door and listen, like obviously my baby's much bigger now and he kind of like almost or basically almost snores. So I can just like lean in and just like, oh yeah, he's all good. He's having a good sleep, but it's not of like a I need to check your
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, cool. That's really interesting. Sam, before we wrap up, and I ask you token question and all the things, is there anything left on your heart that you felt like you have not shared or want to say? Um, yeah.
Um, just that like the real like calling, I suppose, or drive for me to want to like speak to you about this is not just because I think I remember you mentioning it too, like it's so helpful to hear other people's experiences. Motherhood is a really isolating time anyway, let alone if you're like going through it and like dealing with your own internal challenges and feelings and am I good enough? Am I doing this right? Blah, blah, blah. All of the stuff. It can be just like helpful to hear other people's experiences, but just with the more kind of taboo things that people don't mention and don't talk about and birth complications like post-birth complications, etc. There's just it just frustrates me knowing that there's this weird overlay of like shame and that women feel like they can't talk about it. Hemorrhoids,
Pulling in birth.
incontinence, like, having a prolapse for your first birth. I remember a GP asking me, like, oh, how old are you? When I told her that had occurred and I told her my age, and she said, oh, that's weird that you had that. And I was like, I feel really lucky I'm in the headspace that I don't feel ashamed of this because I could walk away from this appointment feeling really gross and really like not okay. And I like that's my biggest thing is like we've gone through one of the most life-changing, intense experiences of our lives, only to continue on with doing one of the hardest, most intense, relentless experiences of our lives, mothering and parenting and raising children. Who has time for shame?
Yeah.
It should not exist. I'm really, really passionate about that. And so that's why I really want to unashamedly speak to a lot of these things because it just should not exist. Women should never be put into a box or made to feel like their incredible and life altering experiences should be met with anything other than like awe and empathy.
I'm gonna start crying. Yeah. I feel this right down to my butthole, right down into my hemorrhoids. I feel it. I thank you so, so much. Yeah, I concur. Couldn't agree more. 10 out of 10. Love it. Yes, 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 yes. Like
Mm.
to everything that you've just said. Rewind, play it again. Yes. Um, so on that, Sam, what does being a walnut mean to you, my friend?
Being a walnut to me, I think means, yeah, speaking out if you feel that calling. Equally, if you're going through the things, sitting in it, processing it, being brave to to feel the feels because it's hard to feel the feels. It's so hard to feel the feels. And so if you're in it and feeling the feels right now, you are doing an incredible job and things will change and things will get better, I promise. Um, but just if you ever feel you need to talk about it, talk about it. Like that's what being a walnut means to me is it takes courage to talk about things. And I also think it's a lot of the time what we need. And so getting better at advocating for ourselves and talking and being honest both with others and with ourselves. That's what being a walnut means to me, I think. Yeah, in a weird roundabout, rambly way. I don't know
No,
if that makes sense.
definitely makes sense, and I hear you, I see you, I feel you. Beautiful. Absolutely, absolutely stunning. Where if there's a walnut listening that like is like, oh, I want to like follow along and get to know this woman, can we share your social media? Can walnuts come to hang out with you if they feel like it?
Absolutely. My social media is very boring. I don't update it very often, but by all means, if slide into my DMs if you want to chat. Like I'm all about the listening and the supporting because yeah, everyone should have a village and everyone should have someone to talk to when they're going through the times. Yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, I'll pop Sam's Instagram handle on the show notes. And S- Sam, thank you so much. Like, just thank you so much for all of the help post pre-recording this, especially through like my condition and everything and beyond. But also just thank you so much for visiting Walnut Wednesday and for sharing your story, sharing your experience, and I'm so proud of you that you like because I know this was a big deal. Yeah, I know how nervous you were and it was all scary and all the things like this was a walnutting for you as well. So
Absolutely was.
oh, just thank you so very much. I feel very empowered, seen, held, everything just from being able to sit here and listen to your story. So I'm sure that Walnuts listening will feel much the same. So thank you so much for visiting Walnut Wednesday.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Um, and Walnut, thank you for listening. If you enjoyed, take a little screenshot and share and all the things. But I will talk to you next week. And Sam, I love you. Thank you.
Love you.
Bye, 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 bye.